As many parents of school-aged children can probably relate to, I was once lost in the land of good with my 9-year-old daughter. When she started elementary school, I was so excited for her, for us, as she was embarking on this new journey. And every day with that excitement in my eyes, I'd pick her up and I'd say, "So, how was your day today?" And without fail, she'd shrug her shoulders and say, "Good." And then I'd say, "Okay, what was good about it?" "I don't know, it was just good." Naturally, I wanted to know more. I was so curious about what was happening in her little life. How was she liking her teacher? And was she getting along with her friends? And what was her favorite subject? And looking back on it now, I don't know how I thought I was going to get all of that by simply asking, "How was your day?" But ultimately, I was in search of an opportunity to connect with her, an invitation of sorts to join her on this journey of big girl school, as we called it, that she was embarking on. But I wanted to do that in a way that didn't feel like a daily interrogation, so I sat with it for a while, and then one day it all just kind of changed. We are driving home, and I say, "Tell me, what was the best part of your day today?" She said, "Oh, my best part?" I said, "Yeah, your best part. What made you smile the hardest today?" She stops and she thinks about it and she says, "Oh, I know. The best part of my day was getting to play handball after school with my friends." "Really?" I said, "I didn't know you knew how to play handball." She said, "Oh yeah, it's a fun game. You throw this ball and you do like this." Now she's giving me instructions from the back seat on how to play handball, not knowing that her own mama played handball, tetherball, and dodgeball when I was a kid. And I share that with her and she's so surprised. She can't believe it. And we have a short but riveting conversation on after-school activities. And that kind of became a new thing between us, and it's something that we still do to this day. And I ask her, "What was the best part of your day today?" And it has ranged from eating cinnamon rolls in the cafeteria to practicing violin to going to the computer lab, which she loves to do more than anything. And just like that invitation I had been longing for into her life, I finally received, all by asking a better question. And it's that interaction that I consider to be the path to connection, real connection with real human beings through real conversation. As a communication expert and certified life coach, my life's work is built around this idea that the quality of your life is directly influenced by your ability to communicate with confidence and with clarity. Part of being a good communicator requires that you are an active listener. Part of active listening requires that you ask questions. But I want us to go deeper. I want us to ask good questions, the juicy kind, that can help us go deeper faster with the people in our lives. In the 15th edition of their textbook, Looking Out, Looking In, authors Adler and Proctor state that questioning helps us to do more than just gather information like data and facts and details. It can also help us learn what people are thinking, how they're feeling, and in some cases what they want. And that I consider to be the secret sauce to developing relationships that add value to our lives and fulfill us. To be clear, I define a better question simply as one that demonstrates genuine curiosity, but without being too intrusive. And when we can strike that balance, that's when we can shatter the perceptions that we have of other people and that in some cases people might have of us. Take my former student Khalid, for example. I was an adjunct professor in communication studies for about 8 years. And over the course of that time, I realized that a good number of my students had never had a Black teacher before in their lives ever, let alone a Black female professor in college. So it wasn't lost on me that by me showing up in all of my glory on the first day of class would impact how some of them perceived me and in some cases how they experienced me, as was the case with Khalid, a young Black male. This night in class, we are brainstorming persuasive speech topic ideas, and it's his turn to share with me what he's going to give his speech on. So he comes to my desk and he kind of plops down in the chair, and I said, "So tell me, what are you thinking about your topic for your persuasive speech?" And he says, "I think I'm going to do mine on recycling." And I said, "Oh, okay. Tell me more about that. Why recycling?" And he says, says everybody should recycle. And I said, yeah, you are right about that. But tell me more. Is this something that you're really interested in? Are you really passionate about recycling? He says, not really, I guess. So clearly, he wasn't sure what he wanted to give his speech on. So we take a moment, and I notice that he's wearing a maroon-colored hoodie with the letters TDE printed on it in white. And I recognize that to be the logo of Top Dog Entertainment, the record label that Pulitzer Prize-winning rapper Kendrick Lamar is signed to. And this sparks an idea in me, and so I ask him, do you think that you could write a speech that argues that TDE is the most important label to West Coast rap since Death Row? And he looks at me and says, I'm sorry, what? I begin to repeat the question, and he said, nah, I heard you, but how you know that? How you know what TDE is? And I said, oh, well, first of all, it's on your sweatshirt. And second, I listen to hip hop. I love rap. Love Kendrick. Don't kill my vibe. He couldn't believe it. His whole countenance changes, and he smiles wide, and he says, see, Miss Amber, that's why I like you, because you old and you young at the same time. I ain't never had a professor like you before. And I just smile and say, thanks, I think. But in that moment, a perception was shattered, and a connection was made. We weren't just teacher and student, we were two hip-hop fans, and we talked about everything from Snoop to Tupac to Kendrick. And I'll never forget the look on Khalid's face as he was walking back to his desk, brimming with new ideas on how he could possibly construct that argument, because it was the face of someone who had just felt seen. And that's the benefit that comes from asking better questions. I could have left it at recycling, but by taking it a step further, we were able to engage in a more thoughtful way. Some of you might hear this and say, okay, girl, this just sounds like small talk, which I already don't like doing. Now you want me to do more of it by asking people questions? I don't think so. And that's not exactly what I'm saying. Asking better questions isn't about meaningless chatter. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about communicating with intention with the people around us. We see this play out in our romantic relationships, for example. A 2013 study found that couples rate communication as the most important deciding factor to relationship success, more than sex and passion. And to me, when we can get good at learning how to engage in a thoughtful way around us, that's when we can really see a change happen in our relationships. So think about that for a second, and let's merge these two ideas. How would you feel if your partner, the one you have, the one you want, or the one you had, on a regular basis looked you in the eye and said, how can I show you that you're a priority in my life? Or how does this relationship contribute to your happiness? Wouldn't you feel seen by that person and appreciated and loved? Don't you feel that way now just by hearing me say that out loud? And we're not even in a relationship together. That's the gift that we all have the power to give the people in our lives when we train ourselves to be thoughtfully curious. To further demonstrate what I mean, let's play a quick round of Ask This, Not That. Say you're at a networking event and you meet somebody new. Instead of asking, so what do? You can ask, what about your work inspires you? Or say you're on the phone with a friend who's going through a hard time. Instead of, how are you hanging in there? You can ask, how can I support you in this moment? I see this in my line of work as a consultant and trainer. At the start of every engagement, I ask the client, what does success look like for you when all of this is said and done? Gives them a chance to think about their goals and articulate them to me, and then we can have a conversation about how we can work together to meet those goals. And I feel like it's a much more effective question than, how can I help? Now, this whole thing of asking better questions can take a little bit of time and practice, but you can get it. I believe in you. It's important for me to note, though, that asking questions is only half the process. The other half of it is being mindful in how we respond to people. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Social Psychology found that questioning has benefits to both the questioner and the person responding. And I think that one of those benefits is providing someone with the opportunity to show up as their more authentic selves, because I think that ultimately that's what we're all searching for, is an opportunity to just be ourselves, or a space to be ourselves. So it's important to note that we also have to make sure that we answer authentically and honestly. How this played out in my own life is I used to be the kind of person that was really good at convincing people that I was doing much better than I was. I think we all are good at that. When someone says, "How are you doing?" you say, "Good, how are you?" And then we will keep walking. But there was a time in my life when I wasn't doing that good. I was working 2 jobs, one that had a 2-hour commute each day, raising a small family and trying to get a small business off the ground. I was so tired and overwhelmed. I didn't know how to say that. And one day at the full-time job I had, a coworker and I were just having a conversation, and she could tell that something wasn't quite right with me. And so she asks me, she looks me in my eye, which is always important, and she says, "Amber, are you okay?" Finally, someone noticed, I thought. That was so much of a better question than "How are you doing?" because I could have just said, "I'm great." She knew better than that. And because she noticed, I decided to answer honestly. And I said, "No, I'm not okay." And with that admission, I began to cry. And I cried so long and so hard, I left work early that day, and I didn't come back for 2 weeks. The question unraveled me, and I realized how much of a disservice I had done to myself and to my loved ones by not just telling the truth and say, "Yo, I'm tired and I need a break." So I made a commitment to myself to always answer that question honestly now when people ask me how I'm doing. Typically, it's the first interaction. The first time I hear that question of the day, I'll stop and I'll think about it and I'll say, "I'm doing great today. Thank you for asking." But if I'm not doing well, I'll just say, "I'm not doing my best today, but I'm trying my best." A friend noticed that I do that, and she said, I noticed you always say today now when I ask you how you're doing. What does that mean? Is something going on?" I said, No, nothing's going on. I answer this way because today is all I have. Today, I could be doing great, feeling productive, getting my steps in, drinking my water. But tomorrow I could be in my car crying in the Target parking lot like I was last week. This gives me a chance to honor this space and the truth of where I am and speak that truth, but without telling everybody all my business. She said, "I like that, Amber. I think I'm going to try that." And I said, I hope you do. And that moment with her gives me a chance to see how impactful this process can be. So again, it's a transaction. I believe that relationships are life's greatest currency, and communication is a transaction whereby we build our interpersonal wealth. So if you want to be wealthy in your relationship, I encourage you to think honestly and critically about how you engage with the world around you. And train yourself to be more thoughtfully curious and make the effort to ask better questions and answer those questions honestly, because you never know, you might learn a thing or two about handball, hip hop, or how a friend is really doing.